Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Dorsett. I am the student pastor at the Christabelle Spiritualist Church in Cherry Valley, Illinois. And welcome to our next sermon in our series of what I've just kind of been jokingly referring to as quarantine sermons, as we're all sheltered in place and we're not necessarily allowed to meet in person yet. So welcome. And as I said, this is the next in our series of home sermons. And I hope you enjoy it. This is one that I'm actually particularly proud of because I feel it does resonate for people. But, well, allow me to begin. The bill comes due always. Now, how many of you are familiar with that phrase? Let me say it one more time. The bill comes due always. Now, as silly as this might sound, it actually comes from a comic book movie that's called Doctor Strange. It actually has some surprisingly deep insights about spiritual content that it really does happen to be a big part of spiritualism, a lot of the themes in this movie. Now, in the movie itself, the main character, Doctor Strange, he starts out being a very talented, very intelligent, very narcissistic individual. He's a brilliant neurosurgeon and can have his pick of whatever cases he wants. So he generally will pick cases that he feels not only will be a fun challenge for him, but will also be cases that really will make him look good. I hate to say that, but it's things that he thinks will give him good publicity. Now, this individual, he is not self-aware in any way, shape, or form. And he's really not interested in becoming more self-aware either. He really has no interest in improving himself spiritually. He's really, in his mind, he's just about perfect because he's very naturally good at his job. And so because of that, he's just really driven to prove to everyone else how great he is. And so, he's out there and he's doing these great things. He's healing people and he's helping people. But he's not necessarily doing these things with any other purpose than for his own ego gratification. And so his intention isn't necessarily maybe the proper one or one that is in line with natural law. And this is really, he's not a happy person. It's really something where he feels like something is missing in his life, but he just doesn't know why or what specifically. And so this is something that he's been kind of trying to look for and trying to understand it, and it isn't working for him because he's looking for this sense of happiness through ego gratification, through, hey, let me tell you how great I am so you can tell me how great I am. And this whole theme is very evident, especially in a scene with his ex-girlfriend who is trying to help him, but then he pushes her away. Now, eventually, his hubris actually does catch up to him. He's driving his incredibly expensive sports car down a twisty mountain road during a thunderstorm while also trying to look at an x-ray. So for those of you keeping score at home, don't text and drive. And especially, don't text and drive while also trying to look at an x-ray in an expensive sports car in a thunderstorm going down a twisty mountain road. It's a recipe for disaster, even if you're not in a movie and it's part of the plot. So obviously something happens. The resulting accident causes him to plunge off the road, down a cliff, and land in the water in a very dramatic fashion. His hands are crushed. Ow. And he wakes up in a hospital to find that his career as a world-class surgeon, it's over. And he spends countless hours and countless hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to fix his hands, but to no avail. He doesn't understand that there is more to him than just his talent as a neurosurgeon. Out of desperation, he travels to a secret place in Tibet, just hoping to heal his hands. Instead, he learns what the movie terms the mystic arts. Ooh. Basically, he's learning how to use the soul skills that we all have access to, but quite a few of us have been trained out of in our lives. He learns how to leave his physical body and to soul travel, for example. He also learns how to heal through the use of energy. And in addition to all of these wonderful things that he's taught, he's given the ability to look through time, to look forward in time, through a plot device that they call the Eye of Agamotto, or the Time Stone. And he uses this time stone to connect with time and to be able to see things not only in the future, but also that are going on in other areas. So also, while he's in Tibet, he meets a guide, a mentor, that is called the Ancient One. And, she tells him something pretty profound, actually. She meets him and she's listening to him talk about how great he is. And without this ability to be a surgeon, he's nothing. And, life is over, why bother? And she tells him something very profound in that she says, you are a man looking at the world through a keyhole. And he's still so caught up in his ego, and he's so caught up in his own thoughts and feelings and his own hubris, that he really hasn't learned to see beyond what she's explaining to him. So he doesn't get it yet. But, as time progresses, he learns many different soul skills, and he begins to realize, as he's interacting with these other students that are there, he's beginning to realize that, the universe does not revolve around him. And that's kind of a shocking development for him. But he starts to learn that there is more going on with this universe than what he ever believed. So as he's learning this self-awareness through these other more advanced and in-tune students, they help him understand that they are all also learning and growing, and yet despite the fact that he has a natural aptitude for these mystic arts, he still has a lot to learn. So as his strength and as his awareness continues to grow, and it does throughout the movie, he starts to recognize just how little responsibility he's actually taken for his own life and for his own actions. Prior to coming to this retreat in Tibet, he really paid no attention to how his words, thoughts, and actions actually did affect other people. So he starts looking at this, and then he actually goes back and starts to make amends with some of the people from his past. And he discovers through this process that someone close to him has made some choices that may have some unintended consequences down the road that are going to also affect a lot of other people. This is actually kind of a watershed moment for him. This is sort of an epiphany where he realizes that, wait, okay, somebody might have been doing the wrong thing, even if their intentions were positive. That doesn't mean that it's going to really work out well. I really have to start to look at, how my own actions and intentions also have consequences. And that's something he really picks up on, is that his own words, thoughts, and actions have consequences that ripple out beyond himself and do affect other people. And so, he's going through and he's thinking about this. And by the end of the movie, he's learned a lot about personal responsibility, as well as a lot about the renewed sense of purpose that he has, and he has a new healing intention. So, of course, as the movie reaches its conclusion, our hero saves the day. Yay! And then he moves forward, and everything is happy again because he's learned how to accept responsibility for himself. He's learned how to understand and work within these mystic arts, within the laws that they have set forth. It's really a movie that, even if you're not into comic book movies, I do find it very enjoyable just for the spiritual content that's actually there. The bill comes due. Always. That line, it's actually spoken by a friend of the main character as a way to caution him that there may be consequences to his words, thoughts, and actions that he's never considered. And, it turns out to be quite prophetic advice for our movie hero. Okay, so why would I be spending the last 9 minutes of this sermon telling you the plot to a comic book movie? After all, I'm not Rotten Tomatoes, I'm not a movie review website, I'm not one of these people on YouTube who that's what they do. But as I said at the very beginning, I was pleasantly surprised at just how much spiritual content and how much the amount of spiritualist principles and symbolism are all throughout this movie. And when you watch it, the principles of the movie, the principles of spiritualism are present in this movie. So I think it's really cool how not only the creators of the comic book, but also the writers and the director of the movie managed to sneak these things in. And it begins with that phrase that I have repeated a few times already, but I really want you to remember because I think it is very profound. The bill comes due always. Does that phrase remind anybody of anything from spiritualism? I don't know, maybe principle number 7. If you think about principle number 7, and I know this is one that I speak about quite often, principle number 7 is all about the responsibility of the individual. We create our own happiness or unhappiness as we follow nature's laws. So remember that. Remember that in the context of your own life, how principle number 7 is very important. And as spiritualists, we do recognize that we are responsible for our own thoughts, words, and actions. By doing things that are not in accordance with nature's laws, we are causing harm, even if that's not necessarily our intention. In the case of Dr. Strange, his intention, at least at first, at the beginning of the movie, was just to feed his ego, just to make himself feel more important and, well regarded through his work, without really looking at how he was doing this or the whys of his healing work. His intentions were not aligned with his actions in any way. So as he learns, grows, evolves throughout the movie, he starts to become more aware of how he's affecting those people and just how his actions are rippling out to the universe. This is very important because this is something that relates to our lives as well. He is essentially, by the end of the movie, not a man looking at the world through a keyhole, but a man who has walked through that door into a whole other world, a whole other realm of existence that is available to him that he didn't even realize existed. So as he begins to understand how everything affects everything, this really also, here we go again with the principles, it ties into our spiritualist principles numbers 2 and 3. And I'm going to recite them here very quickly as a refresher. We believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expressions of infinite intelligence. Now that's followed by, we affirm that a correct understanding of such expression and living in accordance therewith constitute true religion. So, in other words, everything in existence is part of God, source, spirit, infinite intelligence. Seeking to understand and work within nature's laws that are part of that infinite intelligence will help you to live a very much more happy, productive life. It really is true. How many of us have struggled with the principles and how we can relate them to our daily lives? I know there have been many times that I have. Much like Dr. Strange in the movie, we are generally looking at the world through a keyhole, and only by focusing our awareness and our intentions on improving ourselves can we really become more aware of how our thoughts, words, and actions are really affecting not only ourselves, but our environment as well. So, if you were here, or should I say, if you were at church when I did my sermon on nature's laws, you should have a very good understanding of exactly how to think, feel, understand, intent, how your intention is in order to open that door into that amazing new realm of experiences. And, if you weren't there at church, where were you? Oh, wait, no, that's right. I'm just teasing you because I haven't had a chance to do that sermon yet. The week that I was intending on doing that sermon, we ended up deciding that for the safety of our congregation, we would hold off on holding in-person sermons. So I decided to hold off on doing the Nature's Law sermon as well as the 9 Principles sermon, just to wait until we were in person. So just so you're aware, I have not done that sermon on nature's laws yet. However, what I'm referring to is one of the main underlying laws of nature that fall under that blanket of nature's laws. That particular law of nature happens to be the law of cause and effect. If you think about it, it basically boils down to that pebble in a pond analogy. What we do, what actions we take, it's like a pebble being thrown into a pond. You throw that pebble, it lands in the pond, and then it ripples out to the universe around you. So please be mindful of how your thoughts, words, actions, and intentions will really benefit you and other people. Your intention really does mean a lot. So, and there is another plot point from the movie that kind of really resonated with me. Now that I think about it, it's actually the time stone that Dr. Strange uses, that Eye of Agamotto. Now, in the movie, he requires a plot device, some kind of a physical object to help him to prophecy, to help him to see forward into the future, and to help him to understand what's happening in areas that are remote from him. We as spiritualists, we also understand that these are soul skills that each and every one of us has, that we don't need a time stone. We don't need anything special just beyond ourselves to be able to prophecy, to be able to see into the future, to be able to tune into remote locations that we may not be physically at. These are all soul skills that we all have, that each and every one of us have the ability to do. And that is also something that ties back into the movie, with the exception of the fact that we are even more unlimited than Dr. Strange is in the movie, in that we don't need any kind of an object to make that happen. So that's also where it kind of ties into principle number 9. Yeah, the one that says that we affirm that the precepts of prophecy and healing are divine attributes proven through mediumship. You know, we all have that ability. We can all do it, and we can all do it with just practice, which is much like what he does in the movie. Is that he gains his skills, he gains his abilities through studying. So it's just like what we describe. You might have a natural aptitude for something, but you need to practice. It's just like that old joke. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. Now also, if you'll remember earlier in the sermon, I'd mentioned that there was a character that they called the Ancient One, who acted as sort of a mentor or a guiding influence for Doctor Strange. This, too, is also a plot point that relates directly to spiritualism. He has a guide who helps guide him, just like we all have a whole team of guides that work with us. And I have spoken in my last sermon about that hierarchy of help, or maybe this was 2 weeks ago, but I have spoken recently in a sermon about our own higher guidance and how we all have a team of not just loved ones, but also spirit guides, angels, all the way up through what they would call universal masters or ascended masters, you know, souls like we are who've kind of gotten it right and still hang around to help the rest of us, all the way up through infinite intelligence itself. We have so much guidance at our disposal, so much help working with us. And so even in that even in that area of the movie, in that plot point, he also has his own guide. And I just think that's fascinating to me, how many different things correlate and how many different principles of spiritualism they snuck into this movie. So in closing, just like in the movie, with a little bit of practice and focused intention, and I would get up on my soapbox, but you wouldn't be able to see me standing here. Intention is everything. So with a little bit of intention, a little bit of focus, consistent focus, let me rephrase that, you will find that you can reach even greater heights. You can do even greater things. And with the proper intention and with following nature's laws and using the 9 principles of spiritualism as a guide for yourself, you can help not only improve your life in exponential ways, but also the lives of the people around you. I mean, as spiritualists, we know this to be true. We all have the ability to improve ourselves and to be there for the people around us. So, like I said, boils down to this. This is the bottom line. If you don't get anything else from this sermon, I ask you to remember this. Do your best to follow the 9 principles of spiritualism, follow nature's laws, and above all, have fun with life. Now go out there and make today a great day. Make today a great week. Let's really improve this world. Let's make some positive changes and choose love. Thank you.